As you can see, I did a ton of bird thumbnail sketches because finally I am inspired with printmaking. I finally have some ideas after about a year of not really being inspired and several years on and off, really. Now, what I think happened was I was shying away from anything remotely difficult because lino printing is such an investment of time and material. I just really didn't want to see anything fail. So I definitely had some grand ideas, but I didn't even entertain them because it was very likely that they just wouldn't work. So while I wasn't inspired very much with block printing, my interest had shifted and I was actually really enjoying painting, and mostly painting birds. So now, realizing that I've been avoiding hard things with printmaking, and for whatever reason I really want to improve my shop and enter a new era of my lino prints. So what better subject than native birds of North America? So I decided I want to challenge myself and also make myself more professional looking, and that's largely by doing limited edition reduction prints. But I just kind of need to warm up first, so this guy is just going to be one layer. But even though this is just my typical one block print, I am challenging myself. For one, I'm doing a square border, which I kind of hate. They're hard to carve and hard to center on the paper, but they look so nice when they're done right. And I did thumbnailing instead of just having an idea, drawing it to size, and carving it and just hoping for the best. I actually did a bunch of thumbnails, picked the best one, further refined it on my iPad, and yeah, I'm putting in more effort. I tried to keep my process clear visually in this video, but maybe I should explain a few things. I primed the linoleum block with red acrylic paint mixed with a tiny bit of water, but that won't stick, so first I sand it with a very fine grit sandpaper. To trace the image onto the block, I use a very soft pencil like 8 or 9B. And before I start carving, I always burnish my tools so they're nice and sharp. Alright, back to my motivations for doing this print. So when I first started doing lino printing, I couldn't draw very well, but since then I have been working a lot to improve my knowledge of the fundamentals, and I have gained a lot of knowledge, but at the same time, just out of habit, I've kind of stuck with drawing plants. And nothing against artists who draw plants, but they are one of the simpler things that you can kind of get away with some mistakes, like more so than animals. And just to show that I'm not being a snob, I'll attack myself and say birds are probably the easiest animal to draw. Anyway, I don't want to sound like I'm saying, ooh, plants are so easy, look at me. But I'm just realizing that I kind of stuck with plants because that was one of the subjects that I could do a good job of, even though my drawing skills weren't really quite up there. And for a lot of my plant illustrations, I would go out, photograph or draw a plant, and I would not change hardly a thing about it because I just didn't really know how to do that. I didn't know how to rearrange things. I didn't know how to compose. So I just took the plant as is, which is kind of neat. Like, nothing against that, but just saying I really didn't know how to improve my subject or arrange it in an interesting way. But I think I can do that now. So, like with my botanical block prints, I want to stick to doing subjects that I've actually seen in person and, maybe have a little bit of a story about it, even if it's just something as simple as I was on a walk and I saw this bird. Now, I don't want to rush myself, but I think it would be very cool to have quite a few different species in my shop, both as single block prints and reduction prints. Now, starting out, I told myself I wasn't going to change what I'm doing depending on how well something will sell in my shop. But it is a real bummer to spend a lot of time on a print and to only get 1 or even 0 sales. So I am trying to be aware of what I want, but still consider how things will do when I try and sell them. Now with these birds, I just know that my customers prefer 5x7 prints over 8x10s, possibly because of the price I sell them at. So when I was thinking that I want to improve my prints and challenge myself, I thought that meant doing bigger prints. But I weighed the pros and cons, and my customers prefer smaller prints, and I actually prefer them too. They take less time to carve, and especially they're a lot easier to print. And if we measure it by the amount of time I spend on them, I would rather have 2 or 3 5x7 prints that I really don't mind printing, rather than have one giant print that I don't like printing and no one really buys. But that's just for single block prints. I think for reductions, I want to do 8x10s just because for the colored prints, I am going for that like professionalism and collectability. So I think larger prints are better in that case. Although I think starting out I am gonna do a 5x7 reduction just because I haven't done a whole lot of reduction prints and I don't want to spend a lot of time on this big print that doesn't work out. So it's kind of like a smaller practice run. Sometimes when I design a print, I'm unsure what amount of the details I drew I'll actually be able to carve. And I just really took my time on this one and tried to do my best work because that's the whole point of my new era of block printing is like I'm really gonna do a good job. So yeah, I think I found like my personal limit to the smallest I can carve with it still looking nice and crisp. I just thought of another thing that would stop me from creating. I would have a good idea, but then I wouldn't be sure if I could properly execute it, or even how I want to go about it if there were multiple ways, like I had multiple variations of the same idea. And basically I had it in my head that I could only do an idea once. So if I attempted it and it didn't really turn out that great, that was it. I had to come up with a completely new idea. So I've decided that that is silly. And even with this night heron, I started to wonder, maybe the background should be black, and then that would emphasize those cute little feathers that come out the back of his head. But you know what? I can do this print again with a black background. I can take the exact same drawing if I want to. Probably won't, I might change the pose a little bit. But for past me, that was like too similar an idea. I had to, everything had to be really unique. But now I've decided that prevents me from creating, so I'm gonna cast that aside. And also there's no harm in having pieces that are really quite similar. Alright, it's time to print, the most exciting part, and extra exciting because I just bought some new paper. That's another one of the things in my new era of printing. I have been looking for ways to add variations to prints to give customers more options, and I've been searching for years for fun paper options, and I guess I just passed this one by because it's a bit expensive, but thank you to my customers. Now that I'm making more money, I can totally justify, experimenting with some fun paper variations. So not only am I pushing myself to improve the quality of my prints in terms of like the drawing and the composition and offering some really fun paper options, I am also improving the way I present myself and sell my work to potential customers. Before I would just take a picture and basically be like, here, this is the artwork, hope you like it. But now I want to up the professionalism and explain to the buyer the quality of my work, make it very clear that this is all handmade. The paper is acid-free, so it's going to last. The inks are all really good quality. They're very light fast, and this black ink will actually stay fade-free for over 100 years, which is crazy. I didn't even know that. Yeah, I've been listening to some of those Etsy improvement podcasts, and yeah, I've realized I can really improve the way I present myself. And yeah, it does feel kind of silly because I'm... Is it weird to say I'm humble? Does that just cancel out saying that I'm humble? But I have a hard time presenting myself as a professional. And my work deserves it. And it's kind of fun to pretend. Like, I don't want to say, like, I'm absolutely not lying about anything I say on my Etsy, but I do feel like, you know, the fake it till you make it thing, like I'm pretending to be professional, because I really don't feel like I am. But then I don't think I ever will feel that way, so I just have to do it. A bit of shameless self-promotion, take a look at my Etsy. I think the shopping experience is quite good now, and just nice to look at, nice to window shop. Now, this little frog stamp is the smallest I have ever carved. I really didn't think I could pull it off, but I was like, why not give it a try? My usual frog stamp is too big for this bird series, so I needed something really, really tiny that wouldn't compete with the main composition. Now, I had to show you guys what I was dealing with while I was printing. This is Domino, and he always needs attention at the worst possible time. I sadly could not stop and cuddle him, so he had to follow me back and forth as I was printing. Now this paper I really like, but I was worried it would compete with the block print because it is pretty high contrast. But this is basically the paper I've been looking for. Like, I had this idea of like a very fleckled, plant material-y paper, and I found it, and it actually looks good. The print looks good on it. Now I'm even more excited about this series of bird prints because I really like how this one turned out. I'm pretty proud of it. And I think the combination of the quality of this print, the subject, and also all the effort I put into the listing to make the presentation really nice, I think it all paid off because in the first 2 days I got 3 orders, which like never happens. I did my best in every single respect, and it's paying off. Isn't he cute? And he has this little frog friend to keep him company.